I went to my parents' family banquet, only to be told, "You're not invited, leave." They even called security, calling me a beggar. I walked away and canceled $76,000 worth of their trips and parties. Minutes later, my phone blew up. My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a financial consultant for high net worth individuals, which means I help wealthy people manage their money, plan their investments, and organize their extravagant lifestyles. It's a good job, pays well, and I've worked my ass off to get where I am. But this story isn't really about my career. It's about my family, or what's left of it. My parents, Richard and Patricia Monroe, are what you call new money wealthy. My dad made his fortune in commercial real estate about 12 years ago, and ever since then, my mother has been obsessed with status, appearances, and climbing the social ladder in our city. They live in a mansion in the suburbs, drive luxury cars, and throw elaborate parties to show off their wealth to anyone who'll pay attention. I have one sibling, my older brother Jason, who's 32. Jason is the golden child, the favorite, the one who can do no wrong in my parents' eyes. He works for my dad's company in some vague executive position that I'm pretty sure was created just for him. He's married to a woman named Brittany, who is as shallow and status-obsessed as my mother. Together, they have 2 kids, Madison and Cooper, whom my parents absolutely worship. As for me? Well, I've always been the black sheep. I didn't want to work for the family business. I wanted to make my own way, build my own career, and not have everything handed to me on a silver platter. My parents never understood that. They saw my independence as rejection, and over the years, our relationship became more and more strained. About 3 years ago, things came to a head. My mother made some incredibly hurtful comments about my life choices during a family dinner, calling me ungrateful and saying I'd never amount to anything without their help. I snapped back, words were exchanged, and I walked out. Since then, our relationship has been cold at best. We'd see each other at major holidays, exchange awkward pleasantries, but that warmth and connection you're supposed to have with family? It wasn't there. Despite everything, I still help them occasionally with financial advice when they asked. But about 18 months ago, when they were complaining about how complicated their finances were getting and how their previous advisor was incompetent, I made them a formal offer to handle things professionally. I reorganized their entire financial portfolio. I found tax loopholes that saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars. I set up trusts, managed their investments, and most relevantly to this story, I took over booking and managing all of their luxury vacations, parties, and social events. Why? Because these things were expensive and complicated, and my mother kept screwing them up or getting overcharged because she didn't know what she was doing. I had access to all their accounts for these purposes. They'd given me power of attorney for financial matters. I could book trips, reserve venues, hire caterers, and cancel any of these arrangements if needed. This was all above board, all documented, all at their request. I even had them sign paperwork acknowledging this arrangement. I'm nothing if not thorough. In return, they paid me a consulting fee, though it was significantly less than I'd charge any other client. I did it because, despite everything, they were still my parents. I kept hoping that maybe if I proved myself valuable, if I showed them I was successful and capable, things might improve between us. I know. I was naive. I should mention here that over the past 6 months, things had been especially quiet between us. My parents hadn't returned my calls or texts. I tried reaching out several times, but got nothing back. I figured they were just busy with their social calendar, which I was managing from behind the scenes anyway. I'd arranged their summer trip to the Amalfi Coast, booked their anniversary party at an exclusive restaurant, and reserved a villa in Aspen for Christmas. All of these were expensive, elaborate affairs that took weeks of planning and coordination. Now, let's get to what happened tonight. This afternoon, I received a text from my mother. Not a call, mind you, but a text. It read, "Family banquet tonight at the Grandview Estate, 7 p.m. Don't be late." That was it. No please, no would you like to come, just a command. But honestly, I was happy to receive it. I thought maybe this was an olive branch, a chance to reconnect. The Grandview Estate is this incredibly fancy venue that hosts high society events. I'd actually been the one who'd booked it for them for some fundraiser gala next month, so I was familiar with the place. So tonight, I dressed nicely. Not too fancy, but appropriate for a nice family dinner at an upscale venue. I wore a simple black dress, modest jewelry, and took care with my appearance. I even stopped and bought a nice bottle of wine to bring as a gesture of goodwill. I was nervous but hopeful. I arrived at the Grandview Estate at 6:55 p.m., wanting to be punctual. The parking lot was full of expensive cars, which didn't surprise me. My family loved to show off, and they rarely did anything that wasn't a spectacle. I walked up to the entrance, wine bottle in hand, and that's when things started to go wrong. There was a reception table in the lobby with two young women checking guests in against a list. I approached with a smile and said, "Hi, I'm Sarah Monroe. I'm here for the Monroe family banquet." The woman looked down at her list, ran her finger down the page, then looked at the second page. Then she looked back at me with confusion. "I'm sorry, I don't see your name on the guest list." I felt a flutter of anxiety in my stomach. "That's strange. My mother texted me to come. Can you double check? Sarah Monroe?" She checked again, more carefully this time. "No, I'm sorry. There's no Sarah Monroe on the list. I have Richard and Patricia Monroe, Jason and Brittany Monroe and their children, but no Sarah." My face must have shown my confusion and hurt because she looked sympathetic. Maybe there was a mistake? "Would you like me to call, Sarah? What are you doing here?" I turned to see my mother walking toward me from the main banquet hall. She was dressed to the nines in a designer gown, dripping with jewelry, her hair and makeup professionally done. But her face wasn't welcoming. It was annoyed. "Mom, I came for the family banquet. You texted me to be here at 7. Her eyes narrowed. "I sent you that text by mistake. It was meant for the group chat with Jason and Brittany. You're not invited to this event." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What? But it's a family banquet. You just said family. This is for real family, Sarah. People who support us, who are actually part of our lives. You made it clear years ago that you wanted nothing to do with us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, that's not fair. I've been trying to reconnect. I've called, I've texted. You're the ones who haven't responded." She crossed her arms, and I saw a few other guests starting to gather, watching our exchange with interest. My mother loved an audience, and I could see her shifting into performance mode. "You need to leave, Sarah. This is a private event, and you're not wanted here. You've always been jealous of what we've built, of Jason's success, of our standing in this community. We're done humoring your bitterness." My hands were shaking. "Jealous? I've been managing your entire financial life. I've been booking your trips, organizing your parties, saving you money." "Oh, here we go," my mother interrupted, her voice dripping with condescension. "Always looking for credit, always wanting appreciation for doing the bare minimum. You're just like your father's sister, always with your hand out, always playing the victim." A small crowd had definitely gathered now. I could see my father emerging from the banquet hall, and behind him, Jason and Brittany, looking pleased with themselves. "I'm not playing victim, Hum. I'm trying to understand why I'm being excluded from a family event when I've done nothing but help you all." That's when my father spoke up, his voice cold. "Enough, Sarah. Your mother is right. This event is for family and friends who actually matter to us. You've made your choices, and we've made ours. You need to leave now before you embarrass yourself further." I looked at Jason, hoping for some support, some sign that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. But he just smirked at me and put his arm around Brittany, who was watching with undisguised glee. "You heard them," Jason said. "This isn't your scene. Maybe try the diner down the street. Seems more your speed these days." The crowd around us actually laughed. My own brother had just insulted me in front of strangers, and they found it funny. I felt tears threatening, but I refused to cry in front of these people. "Fine. I'll leave." I turned to go, but my mother wasn't done. Her voice rang out across the lobby, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And Sarah? Don't come around asking for money or handouts in the future. We're done enabling your poor life choices. You made your bed, now lie in it. Coming here like this, uninvited, trying to guilt your way into events you don't belong at. It's frankly pathetic. You look like a beggar showing up where you're not wanted." The beggar comment did it. Something inside me snapped. But I didn't yell, didn't make a scene. Instead, I felt this cold, clear calm wash over me. Security. My father was suddenly next to my mother, waving at two security guards. "We have an uninvited guest who's refusing to leave. Please escort her out." The two security guards approached me, looking uncomfortable. One of them said quietly, "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." I held up my hands. "I'm going. No need to escort me. I wouldn't want to stay another second anyway." As I walked toward the exit, I heard my mother say to the crowd, "I'm so sorry about that disruption, everyone. Unfortunately, we have a family member who's always been troubled. We've tried to help, but some people just can't be helped. Please, let's not let this ruin our wonderful evening. The banquet is about to begin." I made it to my car before the tears came. I sat there in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, feeling humiliated, rejected, and absolutely furious. They'd called me a beggar. Mocked me in front of strangers. Had security ready to throw me out like I was some kind of threat. For about 10 minutes, I just sat there crying. Ugly crying, the kind where your whole body shakes and you can't catch your breath. I felt so stupid for hoping things could be different. Stupid for dressing up and bringing wine like some naive idiot who thought her family actually wanted her there. Stupid for spending years helping them behind the scenes while they cut me out of their lives in public. I looked at the bottle of wine still sitting in my passenger seat, a $60 bottle I'd carefully selected because I knew my father loved that particular vintage. I almost threw it out the window right there, but instead I just stared at it, this stupid symbol of my desperate attempt to bridge a gap that was never going to close. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it, wondering how someone I didn't know had gotten my number. "Hey Sarah, it's Amanda from the guest list. I'm so sorry about what happened. That was really messed up. Your mom told us specifically to make sure you weren't on the list and to alert her if you showed up. I feel awful about it. I got your number from the event contact sheet your mom gave us. Just wanted you to know it wasn't personal from us." So it was planned? My mother hadn't just accidentally sent me that text. She deliberately baited me to come here so she could humiliate me in public. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. It was calculated cruelty. I texted back, "Thank you for telling me. I appreciate it." That's when something shifted inside me. The tears stopped. The sadness crystallized into something else, something cold and clear. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was done. And that's when I remembered, I had access to everything. Every reservation, every booking, every planned trip and event for the next year. And they just treated me like garbage. But I didn't rush into it. I sat there for another few minutes, thinking it through. Was this just emotional revenge? Was I about to do something I'd regret? I played out the scenarios in my head. If I did nothing, what would happen? My parents would go on treating me like garbage while I continued to make their lives easier behind the scenes. They'd enjoy their trips and parties, funded and organized by someone they just publicly humiliated. The people at that banquet would remember me as the crazy daughter who showed up uninvited and got kicked out. My family would continue their narrative that I was troubled, ungrateful, and not worth their time. If I canceled everything, what would happen? They'd be inconvenienced, sure. Embarrassed, definitely. They'd probably be furious with me. But would I be doing anything illegal? No. Would I be doing anything unethical? That was the question I needed to answer. I thought about the power of attorney documents, the contracts, the email trails. Everything I'd done for them had been documented and authorized. I had explicit permission to manage these accounts. And nowhere in our agreement did it say I couldn't terminate the relationship or cancel services. In fact, our contract specifically outlined how either party could terminate the arrangement with immediate effect. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about self-respect. It was about showing them that actions have consequences. They wanted me out of their lives? Fine. But they didn't get to have it both ways. They didn't get to treat me like trash while still benefiting from my expertise and labor. I pulled out my laptop from my work bag. I always kept it with me because I often worked on client matters remotely. I opened it up and logged into the secure account management system I use for all my clients, including my parents. But before I did anything else, I did something crucial. I documented everything. I opened a new folder on my laptop and started taking screenshots. Screenshots of the text message my mother had sent me. Screenshots of my call logs showing all the times I tried to reach out over the past months with no response. Screenshots of every authorization document, every signed contract, every email where they'd requested my services. I also wrote out a detailed timeline of what had just happened. The text invitation, my arrival, the guest list situation, every word my parents had said to me, the security threat, the beggar comment. I included the names of witnesses. I noted the timestamps. I even took a photo of myself in my car, eyes red from crying, with a venue visible in the background through my windshield. If this was going to get ugly, I was going to have evidence. This took about 20 minutes, but it was necessary. I'm a professional, and professionals cover their asses. Only then did I open the account management system. I pulled up their upcoming reservations and expenses. The list was extensive, and as I scrolled through it, I felt a mix of emotions. Pride at how well I'd organized everything. Anger at how they'd taken it all for granted. And a grim satisfaction at what I was about to do. Let me be clear, what I was about to do was legally sound. I had power of attorney for financial matters. I had explicit written authorization to manage, book, and cancel reservations on their behalf. And technically, I was still their financial consultant until one of us formally terminated the arrangement in writing, which hadn't happened. But I also knew this would hurt them. Not just financially, though that was part of it. It would hurt their pride, their social standing, their carefully cultivated image. And right then, sitting in my car with tears still drying on my cheeks, that felt like exactly what they deserved. I started with the big-ticket items, Their trip to the Amalfi Coast in 6 weeks, $18,000 for villa rental, first-class flights, and prepaid experiences. I'd spent hours researching the perfect villa, one with a private beach access and a chef's kitchen. I coordinated with a local concierge service to arrange wine tastings, boat tours, and reservations at exclusive restaurants. My mother had been bragging about this trip for weeks, showing everyone photos of the villa, talking about how they were staying in the same place some celebrity had vacationed last year. Cancelable with a full refund if done more than 30 days in advance, which it was. I clicked cancel, and watched as the confirmation screen appeared. Your reservation has been successfully canceled. Refund will be processed within 5 to 7 business days. 1 down. The anniversary party at Chateau Royal, $12,000 for venue, catering, and entertainment. This one stung a little because I'd actually put a lot of work into it. The Chateau Royal was notoriously difficult to book, but I'd managed to get them a prime date because I'd worked with their events coordinator before for other clients. I designed the whole evening, a champagne reception, a 5-course dinner with wine pairings, a string quartet for ambience, and a special vintage wine I tracked down because it was from the year my parents got married. My mother had already sent out invitations. Formal, engraved invitations to 80 of their closest friends and associates. She'd probably been showing off about the venue for weeks. Cancelable with a 90% refund if cancelled within 48 hours of final booking confirmation, which it was since I'd just finalized and confirmed the details 3 days ago. I'd had to reconfirm because my mother kept changing her mind about the menu. Cancelled. $10,800 refunded. Sorry, Mom. Christmas villa in Aspen, $25,000 for a month-long rental over the holidays. This was their big winter vacation, the one where they planned to have Jason and Brittany and the grandkids come visit for a picture-perfect mountain Christmas. The villa had 6 bedrooms, a private hot tub, ski-in/ski-out access, and a dedicated concierge. I'd also arranged for a private chef for Christmas dinner and had booked ski lessons for the grandkids. My mother had already bought matching pajamas for the whole family for their Christmas card photo. She told me about it in one of our last conversations months ago, back when she was still speaking to me regularly. She'd been so excited about the aesthetic of it all. Fully refundable until October 1st, which was still 6 days away. Cancelled. The funds would be returned to their account, but that villa would be snatched up within hours of becoming available again. There was no way they'd find something comparable for the holidays now. The fundraiser gala they were hosting at this very venue, the Grandview Estate, next month, $15,000 for venue, catering, decorations, and entertainment. This one was tricky. It was supposedly for charity, though I'd always suspected my parents were more interested in the social clout than actually helping anyone. The charity would benefit regardless, but my parents would lose the recognition. I pulled up the charity's contact information and sent them a direct message through their website, explaining that while the gala had to be cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances, I was arranging for the full donation amount to be sent directly to them from an anonymous donor. I processed the donation myself from their account, which I was authorized to do, and made sure the charity would get every penny that was supposed to go to them. The difference was that my parents wouldn't get to stand on stage and accept applause. They wouldn't get their names in the charity's newsletter or their photo in the society pages. They'd just be out the $15,000 with nothing to show for it except a tax deduction. Then I moved on to the smaller items. A wine tasting tour in Napa Valley they planned for next month, $4,000 for a private guided tour of exclusive vineyards, including a rare vertical tasting at one winery. My father had been looking forward to this because he fancied himself a wine connoisseur. Cancelled. Reserved VIP box seats for the opera, 3 different theater productions, and 2 major sporting events over the next 6 months, roughly $2,000 total. These were the kinds of events my parents used to see and be seen. They'd invite important business contacts, take photos for social media, and generally use the outings to maintain their social network. Cancelled, all of them. A weekend spa retreat for my mother and Brittany at an exclusive resort, $3,000. My mother had planned this as a bonding experience with her daughter-in-law. She talked about it like it was some generous gift, but I'd been the one who'd found the resort, negotiated the package, and arranged everything. Cancelled. A private yacht charter for my father's upcoming birthday, $8,000 for a day cruise around the bay with catering and an open bar. He planned to invite his business associates and some influential friends. Another opportunity to show off, another event I'd meticulously planned. Gone. Every reservation for their favorite restaurant for the next 3 months, I'd had a standing arrangement with the maitre d' because my parents dined there frequently and always wanted the best table. I contacted the restaurant and informed them that the Monroe family would be handling their own reservations going forward. I also subtly mentioned that they might want to confirm any future reservations directly with the clients, as there had been some confusion about authorization. Their spa memberships, their country club reservations, their tickets to an exclusive charity horse race, their planned weekend in Napa for their friend's vow renewal ceremony, everything. If I'd booked it, I canceled it or complicated it. With each cancellation, I felt a weight lifting. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my time, my energy, my expertise. For years, I'd been giving them the benefit of my skills while they gave me nothing but criticism and rejection in return. The total value of everything I canceled, approximately $76,000. But the real cost to them would be much higher. The social embarrassment of canceling on people. The difficulty of rebooking high-demand venues and experiences. The damage to their reputation as reliable hosts and friends. The realization that the daughter they just humiliated was the one who'd been holding their entire social life together. But I wasn't done. I had one more crucial step. I also drafted a formal letter terminating my consulting services, effective immediately. I outlined every service I'd provided, every dollar I'd saved them, and noted that as per our contract, they owed me for the current month's retainer and expenses, which they'd been late on paying anyway. I sent this via email with read receipts and also via certified mail to their home address. But before I finalized everything, I did something else. I composed individual emails to each vendor I'd worked with on my parents' behalf. These weren't just form letters. I'd built relationships with these people over the past 2 years. The concierge at the Aspen Villa who always made sure my parents got the best snow conditions updates. The events coordinator at Chateau Royal who'd bent over backward to accommodate my mother's constant changes. The travel agent who'd worked magic to get those first-class tickets to Italy. To each of them, I sent a personal note. I want to thank you for the excellent service you've provided to my clients, the Monroes. Unfortunately, I will no longer be managing their account effective immediately. They will need to work with you directly for any future bookings or modifications. I've greatly appreciated working with you, and I hope our paths cross again with other clients. Professional, courteous, and subtly informative. These people would now know that the Monroes had lost their organized, reliable contact person. They'd be dealing directly with my mother, who was known for being difficult, and my father, who rarely paid attention to details. Good luck with that. I also sent a comprehensive email to their accountant, copying myself, outlining all the cancellations and refunds to expect and noting that I was no longer managing any financial matters for the Monroes. This was covering my tracks, making sure there was a clear paper trail showing I'd acted professionally and communicated all changes properly. The whole process took about 45 minutes total. When I was done, I closed my laptop and just sat there for a moment. The parking lot had emptied significantly. Through the windows of the Grandview estate, I could see the banquet in full swing. The lights were bright, people were moving around with drinks, and I imagined my family in there, laughing and celebrating while having no idea what I'd just done. Part of me wanted to march back in there and tell them. To see the looks on their faces when they realized what had happened. But that would be petty and dramatic, and honestly, I was exhausted. The delayed realization would be even better. They'd be in the middle of their fancy dinner when the cancellation notifications started coming through. I started my car and drove home. I felt numb, but also strangely liberated. The tears had dried. My hands had stopped shaking. I felt like I just set down a massive weight I'd been carrying for years. The drive home took about 30 minutes. I lived in a modest but nice apartment downtown, close to my office. It wasn't a mansion like my parents' house, and my car wasn't a luxury vehicle, but everything I had, I'd earned myself. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of that instead of defensive about it. I got home around 8 p.m. I changed into comfortable clothes, poured myself a large glass of wine, ironically the same type I'd brought for my parents, and tried to process everything that had happened. I kept replaying the scene in the lobby. My mother's face when she saw me. The condescension in her voice. The way my father had backed her up without hesitation. Jason's smirk. The crowd of strangers watching my humiliation like it was entertainment. The security guards approaching me like I was a threat. And that word. Beggar. She'd called me a beggar in front of all those people. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my pride, put aside my hurt feelings, and continued to help them. All the hours I'd spent finding them the perfect villa or negotiating with vendors to get them better rates. All the late-night calls from my mother demanding I fix some reservation issue immediately. All the times my father had casually mentioned to his friends that I did some booking work for them, as if my expertise and professional skills were just a casual favor. For years, I told myself it was worth it. That I was being the bigger person. That eventually, they'd see my value and we'd repair our relationship. But tonight had proven that was never going to happen. In their eyes, I would always be the disappointment, the ungrateful daughter who chose her own path instead of the one they laid out for her. My phone had been on silent. When I checked it around 8:30, I had 3 missed calls from my mother. Then, as I was looking at the screen, it started ringing again. Mom calling. I stared at the phone for a moment. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail. But another part of me wanted to hear her voice when she realized what I'd done. I wanted that moment of recognition. I answered. Hello? What have you done? My mother's voice was shrill, hysterical. I could hear voices in the background, the sounds of the banquet. She must have stepped out to make the call. I just got notifications that everything has been cancelled. The trip, the party, everything. Fix this right now. I took a sip of my wine, letting her panic hang in the air for a moment. Then, calmly, I said, I terminated my consulting services, Mom. I sent you an email explaining everything. You're going to need to find someone else to manage your bookings. You can't do this. You can't just cancel everything. Do you know how much this is going to cost us? How embarrassing this is. Actually, I can do it. I had authorization to manage these accounts, and I used that authorization to cancel services. Now that authorization is revoked, effective immediately. You'll need to handle your own affairs from now on. This is because of tonight, isn't it? You're throwing a tantrum like a child because you got your feelings hurt. Her voice had that familiar sharp edge, the one that used to make me feel small and wrong. But not anymore. I felt remarkably calm. No, Mom. This is because I've realized that I've been allowing myself to be used. I've been providing a professional service at a discount to people who don't respect me, don't appreciate me, and who tonight called me a beggar and had security ready to remove me from a family event. That's not a tantrum. That's a boundary. You spiteful, ungrateful, she launched into a tirade of insults, but I barely heard them. I'd heard variations of this speech so many times before. Ungrateful. Selfish. Difficult. Spiteful. The same words she'd been using to describe me for years, any time I didn't do exactly what she wanted. I'm going to hang up now. If you need to discuss the final invoice for my services, you can email me. Otherwise, I have nothing more to say to you. Don't you dare hang up on me. Sarah. Sarah. I ended the call. My hand was steady. I felt no guilt, no urge to call back and apologize. I just felt done. She immediately called back. I declined the call and blocked her number. Then my phone started blowing up. Jason called. I let it ring 3 times before blocking him too. Dad called. Blocked. Brittany called, which was surprising since we barely spoke, but I blocked her before the call could go through. Then the texts started coming in before I could block everyone. Jason, you're such a petty bitch. Mom and Dad are right about you. I stared at that message for a moment. This was my brother, the person I'd grown up with, who'd once been my best friend before he decided being the golden child was more important than having a relationship with his sister. He'd watched them humiliate me tonight and done nothing. Worse, he'd participated, made that crack about the diner. Dad, this is illegal and you know it. I'll have my lawyers contact you. Empty threats. My father always went for intimidation when he didn't get his way. But I'd been careful, documented everything. His lawyers would tell him the same thing I already knew, I'd acted within my rights. Brittany, wow Sarah, really mature. Ruining family events because you're jealous. Jealous. That was rich. Jealous of what? A loveless marriage to my brother? A life spent playing the perfect daughter-in-law to impress people I didn't even like? No thanks. Mom had texted from Dad's phone, you've destroyed your mother. I hope you're happy. My anniversary is ruined. How could you do this to me? There it was. The guilt trip. The emotional manipulation. Making herself the victim. It had worked on me for years, kept me coming back, kept me trying to earn love that was always just out of reach. Not anymore. I took screenshots of all the messages before blocking everyone. More documentation for the file I was building. Then I silenced my phone and set it face down on the coffee table. I sat there in my quiet apartment, wine glass in hand, and let myself really feel everything. The hurt. The anger. The relief. The fear about what came next. I didn't try to push any of it away. I just sat with it. Around 9:30, I heard my phone buzzing insistently. I flipped it over and saw it was my grandmother calling. I'd forgotten to block her number, but I was glad I hadn't. I answered immediately. Grandma? Sarah, sweetheart, I just heard what happened tonight. I'm so sorry. Her voice was gentle, concerned, and hearing it made my eyes well up again. How did you find out? Margaret Thornton's daughter was at that banquet. She called her mother, who called me. Sarah, what they did to you is unconscionable. I've already called your father and given him a piece of my mind. I could imagine that conversation. My grandmother was the only person my father actually feared disappointing. She was sharp as a tack and took no nonsense from anyone, including her own children. What did he say? A lot of excuses and deflection. But I made myself very clear. What they did tonight was cruel and unacceptable. And this nonsense about you being ungrateful? Sarah, I know how much you've done for them. Your father mentioned months ago how you'd taken over managing some things for them. He made it sound like you'd volunteered out of the goodness of your heart, not that they were paying you for professional services. They've been lying about our relationship for a while now, haven't they? I'm afraid so, sweetheart. I've been asking about you at every family call, and they always said you were too busy with work to visit. I thought you were just focused on your career. I had no idea they'd been cutting you out while using your services. We talked for over an hour. She asked me to tell her everything, so I did. The whole history of my relationship with my parents, the consulting arrangement, what happened tonight, and yes, what I'd done in response. I was honest about all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Good for you." What? Good for you, Sarah. You stood up for yourself. You set a boundary. Was it dramatic? Perhaps. But sometimes dramatic action is the only thing that gets through to people like your parents. They've been taking you for granted, and you showed them there are consequences for that. I thought you'd be disappointed in me. Disappointed? Sarah, I'm proud of you. It takes strength to walk away from people who hurt you, even when they're family. Especially when they're family. That conversation saved me. Her validation, her support, it made me feel like maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe I wasn't overreacting. Maybe I really did deserve better. Before we hung up, she said, "I'm sending you something in the mail. Should arrive in a few days. And Sarah, don't let them guilt you into backing down. You deserve respect, and if they can't give you that, then you're better off without them." After we hung up, I finally felt like I could breathe properly. I finished my wine, took a long shower, and went to bed. I expected to toss and turn all night, but I actually slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls and texts from various numbers I didn't recognize. My parents must have been giving my number to people, trying to get someone to reach me. I blocked each number as they appeared. I also woke up to an email from my father, sent to my professional email address, which he must have gotten from the termination letter. The subject line was "Your actions last night." I made myself a coffee before opening it. I had a feeling I'd need the caffeine. It was long, rambling, and full of threats about legal action, ruining my career, and telling everyone in their social circle what I'd done. He claimed I'd stolen from them, sabotaged them, and acted maliciously. I forwarded the email to my own lawyer with a note asking them to review it and prepare a response if necessary. Then I sent a brief, professional reply to my father: "Richard, I acknowledge receipt of your email. Please note the following facts. I had explicit written authorization, copies attached, to manage your financial bookings and reservations. All cancellations were made within the terms and conditions of the respective vendors' policies, and most resulted in refunds to your accounts. I provided formal notice of termination of our consulting arrangement as per our contract, attached. Any threats of legal action or damage to my professional reputation will be considered harassment and defamation, and I will not hesitate to pursue legal remedies. I am in possession of all documentation, contracts, and communications regarding our business arrangement. I suggest you consult with your attorney before making further accusations. You owe me $3,500 for services rendered this month as per our agreement. I expect payment within 30 days. Going forward, all communication should be through our respective legal counsel. Regards, Sarah Monroe, CFP. I CC'd my lawyer and sent it. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong. I wasn't going to be bullied, and I wasn't going to feel guilty for setting boundaries. Over the next few days, things got messy. My parents apparently tried to rebook everything, but they quickly discovered what I already knew: booking luxury accommodations and exclusive venues at the last minute is nearly impossible, and when it is possible, it costs significantly more. The villa in Amalfi Coast was already rebooked by someone else. The anniversary venue had no availability for the next 3 months. The Aspen property was taken for the holiday season. They ended up having to have their anniversary dinner at a nice but decidedly less impressive restaurant, and I heard through mutual acquaintances that my mother spent the entire evening complaining about me. The fundraiser gala was the biggest disaster. Without the venue and catering I'd arranged, and with only a month's notice, they had to cancel the entire event. The charity wasn't happy about losing the publicity, even though they got the donation. My parents' reputation in their social circle took a significant hit. People started questioning their reliability and organizational skills. But here's what really got to me. About a week after everything went down, I received a letter from my grandmother, my dad's mother. She's 83 and lives in a retirement community about an hour away. She's always been kind to me, and I visited her regularly even when things with my parents were bad. Her letter said she'd heard about what happened, but not from my parents. She'd heard from one of her friends whose daughter had been at the banquet and witnessed my humiliation. My grandmother was appalled. She said she'd called my father and given him a piece of her mind about how they'd treated me. She'd also revealed something I hadn't known. My parents had been telling everyone, including her, that I was too busy with work to attend family events. For the past 6 months especially, they'd been lying about why I wasn't around, making excuses rather than admitting our relationship was broken. They'd been maintaining the appearance of a perfect family while cutting me out behind the scenes and keeping me around only to manage their lifestyle logistics. My grandmother's letter included a check and a note saying, "For the money they owe you, since I doubt they'll pay. You deserve better than how they've treated you. Love, Grandma." That made me cry. Not tears of sadness, but relief that at least someone in my family saw me and valued me. I called her, and we had a long conversation. She told me more about what she'd said to my father, which was apparently quite harsh. She'd threatened to change her will if they didn't apologize to me and make things right. My dad had apparently been furious but also worried, since my grandmother has significant assets. 2 weeks after the incident, I received a stiff, formal email from my mother. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was an acknowledgement that perhaps things were handled poorly and that they were open to discussing matters if I was willing to be reasonable. I didn't respond. 3 weeks after, my father sent a check for the $3,500 they owed me, plus an additional $2,000 with a note saying it was for the inconvenience. Still no real apology, just money, which was typical. I cashed the check. A month after everything happened, I received a long letter from Jason. Surprisingly, it wasn't hateful. He admitted that he'd been going along with Mom and Dad's treatment of me because it was easier than standing up to them. He said he admired what I'd done, that it had woken him up to how toxic our family dynamics were. He asked if we could meet for coffee sometime. I'm still deciding whether to respond to that one. As for my parents, I heard through the grapevine that they hired a new financial consultant, someone who charges triple what I charged them and doesn't put up with my mother's demanding attitude. They've also apparently been more subdued at social events, less boastful, more careful. Me? I'm doing well. Really well, actually. I got a promotion at work. I'm seeing a therapist to work through the family trauma. I've been spending more time with friends who actually value me. And I've realized that I don't need my parents' approval or love to be happy and successful.